landed on D-Day. I was on Omaha Beach. When I got off the landing craft and started going into shore, the only thing I saw was a gold ring, and the fellow was buried in water all the way except his hand with the golden ring on, trying to get out of the water. I'll never forget that.
When we were kids, my brother and I used to zip around in our toy cars.
I can't stop my car.
Our grandfather built them for us. He always liked to help us get where we were going. I never knew how he made them, but he was good at building things, and sometimes he'd teach us a thing or two. He always wanted the best for us, even if that meant spoiling us from time to
You
time.
always give us money.
That's rich.
I was proud to say my grandfather had served in World War II,
I got him.
but we didn't talk a lot about his experience or what his life was like before he was my grandfather. Years after he passed away, my brother and I were driving in our grandfather's old car. A real one this time. My brother said he had a surprise for me. He'd recently discovered some audio cassettes that were gathering dust in our parents' house. On them was an old interview with our grandfather. I had no idea they existed, and suddenly, I was hearing my grandfather's voice again.
If you would, could you give us your full name, the place, and the date of your birth?
It's Robert James Carson. The place is Ireland, and the date of birth is October 6, 1919. My mother and father both came from Ireland. They were married in Chicago, Illinois. Then my mother decided to take a trip to Ireland during her pregnancy. And I think she really wanted me to be born in Ireland. But anyhow, I was born just shortly after we arrived. And we remained in Ireland for 11 months. And then my mother came home, and of course with me. I had a sister named Gladys, and I have a brother named Edmund.
Let's go now and talk a little bit about your life, specifically if you can remember back to the year 1940.
The President of the United States. Dykstra, ladies and gentlemen, members of your government are gathered here to witness the drawing of numbers as provided for in the Selective Service Act of 1940. To the young men themselves, I should like to speak as Commander-in-Chief. You will be the inheritors of a proud history and an honorable tradition, the defense of our freedom. The next serial number, drawn by the Secretary of the Navy.
They started a draft, and anybody who was 21 years old in October 1940 had to sign up for the draft. And it just so happens that I was 21 October 6th, and the draft sign-up was October 16th. I was drafted into the Army on June 4th, 1941. That was crazy, but I was kind of happy to get in the service because, I had a football accident, and then my knee was bad. And I thought I'd be rejected because of that blasted knee. I didn't want to be the guy that wasn't able to get in. I never gave much thought, really, as to what would happen. I did feel that something should have been done about Hitler at that time because he was going through from country to country, which was definitely wrong. It should have never happened. Of course, at 20-some years old, you don't think much of that. I just knew that I was in the service and they required that we get the training, but I didn't realize that we'd be fighting. It was from the Depression into the service. I was on a 15-day furlough. We were driving out to Indiana. The cars didn't have radios in those days. When we arrived there, my cousin ran out the door and told us right away that Pearl Harbor was just bombed and we would probably be in a war soon.
The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
So I really didn't know what to do at that time, whether I should go back right away, remain on my furlough. So I just remained on my furlough for the balance of it, because that was the last furlough I got.
With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph. So help us God.
I was an infantryman. We were shipped to Camp Walters, Texas for a basic training for 3 months. So then I was assigned to the 2nd Infantry Division, right in the middle of maneuvers in Louisiana, so I really got a taste of war games right away. The training over there was excellent. Because with the 2nd Division, we were a real crack division, so the training had to be good. They had something to live up to, and that's their name, was the 2nd Division. Then we moved to Camp McCoy, Wisconsin in October of 42. And I know it was 42 because I got married in December of 42. We took ski training there. So we had basic ski training and ski maneuvers. And then from there we went to Ireland. And so they were stationed in Armagh, Northern Ireland. We landed there in October of 1943. About 3 months prior to D-Day, in the middle of the night, I was pulled out and sent to Margam Castle in Wales. Me and 25 other non-commissioned officers were picked to take the special training for beach commanders, which required real hard training because we had a lot of hard jobs to do in the future. As a group, we went over and landed on Normandy on D-Day at 11 o'clock. The weather was really bad. We waited one day because of the weather. The next day, it eased off a little bit, but the waves were still going like crazy. We're getting off these ships into the landing craft. The waves were just so high. Well, a lot of fellas got sick, even in the landing craft. We landed with not a full field pack. Your rifle is protected, so don't get wet, so it'll shoot when you get on the beach. 1st Division and the 29th Division was the first phase. They were supposed to have been over the bluff by 12 o'clock, but they didn't make it. Only 1/3 of the 1st and the 29th made it up to the top of the bluff. 2/3 never even got there. It was really a mess. There was like 10,000 fellas laying on that beach in one day, either wounded or dead. 1st Division was one of the greatest bunch of fellas you ever want to meet. They were brave. They were strong. And, they're wounded and going like crazy. I noticed like those guys that got on the beach, they pull out a K ration or take it off a dead body, sit on top of the body and eat it. Now that's how you get tough. Everybody became individual heroes, those guys. They were one of the greatest, oh God.
Do you want to take a break?
Take it up. That's the boy. Oh, look at that garden.
I'm a gardener.
Yeah, you're a gardener. Yeah, you're a gardener here. Right back here. Right back here. Right there. That's it. No, not there, over here.
Is there any one thing that stands out as your personal most successful achievement during military service?
Well, I'm proud of what I did on D-Day. Real proud of that. What I was supposed to do was to meet our troops and direct them through the minefields that were cleared and put them to an area where they could sort of organize themselves and then get into the battle right away. So I did that for 3 days, standing up, walking up back and forth on that beach, which really was a fortunate time for me because I didn't get anything with all the mines blowing off, the shells falling, and the bullets flying. Just everything was going by. It just was so chaotic and so, you got a triple win. You didn't get a second win, you got a triple win. And our colonel, when he landed, he said, Bob, what have you been doing? You sleeping all? I said, no, I've been going. He said, I don't need to sleep with all these guys here. He says, Bob, you see that place over there? Go over there and you go to sleep. That's Colonel Hirschfelder. And he gave me a direct order to go to sleep. It was just impossible to get warm because you had no blankets, you had nothing. The only way you got any sleep is you got up with one of your buddies and they slept back to back to keep each other warm. On the beach, it was very damp and it was cool at night, so we didn't get any sleep at all. The third day, they were taking the bodies and arms and legs and flipping them onto dump trucks. That's how many casualties you have. A lot of people lost their sons, their husbands. Casualties, it's hard to say, but you get hardened. You have to get hardened because if you don't, you're going to go berserk. You feel sorry for the people you could kill and wounded, but then you're also trying to keep yourself afloat too. I don't mean that you don't protect the other guys. And really, if you're in it long enough, you're going to go berserk. It's not easy to get used to. Because death really was part of your life. Really part of your life. The worst thing in an invasion like that are the children. The children that lose their parents and don't have any food, don't have anything. You notice all these young kids, I mean, they're just starving. We didn't have much food either until maybe a week later. Then we started getting food. But these little kids were going into the garbage cans and pulling out the food. So, of course, all us guys got smart, good old Americans. We always took a little bit more we needed, and we'd keep it on the side of our mess kit. And then as we went out, we put it into a nice little bucket that we carried. So we fed the kids that way. So during the war, at the beginning, I was a sergeant. After 3 or 4 months, combat was kind of getting to me. It was 72 days of solid fighting. Never had a shower or bath or anything. So I got a German typewriter. This is honest truth. We had a typewriter repairman with us. And so he repaired the typewriter to a factory where the keys were equal to the United States. So I got a book on how to type. So I carried that portable typewriter on my back all the time. Every time we stopped after a battle or something, or any chance I had, I pull that thing off my back and I start typing. Because if you wanted to get to be a higher clerk in the service, you had to be a perfect typist. And you could not make any mistakes. You had no erasures. That was our rules. Our personnel technician got killed. Then I applied for that job. And of course I got it because I was an expert typist by that time. So then I got the personnel technician's job for the 9th Infantry. It was almost worse than being in the front lines, honestly, because when the battles were over, then you had to go to the front lines, find out who was missing, go back to the division, to the replacement depot. And then he'd pick up all these different categories, take them to a place, and he'd give them a pep talk and tell them what not to do. See if we could keep them alive till we get them assigned. After we got them up to the front lines, then we assigned them to the different companies that needed the men. So actually, I was going night and day, really, because I didn't get much sleep, because I had to fill in the ranks during the night for the next day's battle. We went down into the Siegfried line. By that time, I was a personnel technician. I wasn't the foot soldier, but the fellows were taking the pillboxes one at a time because they were so well fortified. So we captured the Siegfried line, and then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. On December 16th, my second wedding anniversary, the Germans poured through for the Battle of the Bulge. The Battle of Bulge was very bad. It was a very bad battle. A lot of casualties. The Germans were just mean because it was the SS troops that were fighting. They were just specialized troops. And, they were just killing wounded just for no reason at all. There's a lot of fellows were wounded and they ran across and they just shoot them dead. They just were killing, period. That's it. Actually fought, even though a personnel technician, everybody fought in the Battle of the Bulge because they had to hold the lines. So everybody fought. In the foxhole, and then one night I heard this thud. The next morning I woke up and see there's that thud. The shell from the cannon didn't go off. I touched it with my hand. It didn't go off. The man upstairs is my favorite.
Ho, ho, ho. He was here, all right.
Was Sandy here?
Yeah.
What can you tell?
He read the letter. He ate the cookie. He ate the thanks for the cake and the milk. Ho, ho. Merry Christmas. S.
Tell us what you and the other men did to celebrate America's traditional family holidays. Did you get to celebrate any of those holidays?
We always celebrated Christmas. Even at the Battle of the Bulge, we celebrated Christmas.
Did you receive any packages from home, or was it very difficult?
My wife always sent stuff. It even got to me when it got better because everybody knew who my wife was and sent stuff. But I'll tell you another story about that, because my wife, she's going to close her ears on it, she's heard it 5 million times. She sent me a little stove which used pills that you burn to heat stuff. So then she also used to send me little cans of soup. About the third day of the Battle of the Bulge, this officer from the 99th Division, he went berserk. So Ray Fessler and myself, we grabbed him and we sat him down, held him down, because they just get wild. And we kept talking, trying to calm him down. For some reason, I says, I'd like to have a little cup of soup. So I heated this small can of soup, and Fessler and I fed him. And within a few minutes, 5 or 10 minutes, he sort of revived himself. So I wrote my wife the story of her great can of soup. The Battle of Bulge lasted a couple of months. They let the Germans go through an old path, came across and cut them off. And we closed lines here, and then they were out. I mean, they just had nothing. After the Battle of Bulge, we liberated several concentration camps. The Germans were short of food. They really had enough food just to keep their soldiers going. So they weren't feeding the concentration camps or the prisoners. They're just thin, and their stomachs were blown up because you don't eat, your stomach gets all bloated. Many, many thousands that we had liberated. We went into Czechoslovakia to do the final mop-up operations over in Pilsen and Prague, Czechoslovakia, when we captured everybody. We had bags of Czechoslovakian money captured from the Germans, and was given it to all the civilians. They have a monument to the 2nd Division in the square. So the war ended while I was in Czechoslovakia, and we captured all the Germans there. I had 147 points, which is way more than I needed to come home, except Uncle Sam decided through Washington that all the personnel technicians were declared essential. So then I had to stay in Europe at the ports, sending the soldiers on their way to either the United States or to the East for more fighting. I'm in there working, and I'm looking at the record, and I see Edmund Carson, my brother. I look up, there he's standing in front of me. So we're sending him to Japan, but they never made it. They just about got there, and they turned around and came back. He had been overseas about 1.5 years longer than I was. Immediately after the war ended in Japan, we got shipped home. So I got home October 1st, 1945, which was a year, 4 months, and 28 days since that time I went in.
It was surreal to hear his voice again, and I was ashamed that there was so much I didn't know about my own grandfather. But I was also grateful that my brother had rediscovered these tapes. Without them, I never would have known what my grandfather had lived through. It was a new way to love him and learn from him. He had bravely walked through fear and cheated death, not only in the name of our country, but for the freedoms of all people.
Before we landed off the ship, the pastor gave the speech, and he says, "You're black, white, yellow. Who you are doesn't mean nothing." He said, "When you get on that beach, fellas, there's only one color that's going to run out of your body, and that's red." The Germans, everybody's your enemy. But you don't have any what you call real enemies, because they're human beings like you. I mean, the German soldiers, except for the SS troops, were just people like us. They were doing their job, fighting for their country. You didn't have any animosity against any one of them, really. I never did, and most of the soldiers never had any hate, because we helped the people after. We have self-assurance that we have respect to the people that we beat. During the war, our mental attitude didn't change. It was just a matter of survival, really. Now it's worse than at the time, because you're just saying, well, you're lucky. You're still walking, you're still breathing.